So Jabari Parker is a member of the Chicago Bulls. I think there are some things to be excited about, intrigued about, but I also feel that there are some areas of Parker's game in relation to this Bulls team which could be kind of rough. Before we get into all that, let's talk about where I believe Jabari Parker is right now as a player. The first thing that I actually want to mention is that he's actually shooting three-pointers now. The first 2 years of his career were really plagued by Jason Kidd telling him to shoot mid-rangers, or maybe Jabari just didn't want to take them, I don't know, but I feel like he was leaving a lot of points on the board when he elected to shoot pull-up mid-rangers, or he would actually take a step in the mid-range area when he would have a wide-open three. And the past 2 seasons, he has been willing to shoot around, let's say about 3, maybe sometimes 4 threes a game, and that's good because I think he's got the shooting abilities to do that. You know, his free throw percentage has been decent enough his whole career. His form looks fine, and when he has confidently gone up on threes, it's looked pretty good. So why not shoot him, if you ask me? It spaces the floor out for everybody else, and that should benefit his teammates in Chicago. So that's all good stuff. To build on that, could we see him making contested threes consistently? Could we see him master the ability to move off the ball for three-pointers? Because I think he's been an okay enough cutter when he's been asked to do that in his career. You know, if you can use screens to get defenders off of you and all that, and then you can turn to the basket and hoist it up, or if you can just make like pull-up threes and transition, that could be the next level of him being an outside scorer. If we get to his abilities to just kind of finish around the rim, I think he's improving there. His percentages at the basket for the last 2 seasons have been in the mid-60s, which I think is okay given that so much of this guy's career has been affected by injuries. You could make a case that he's never been able to really be 100% on an NBA floor for any time outside of like his rookie season, pretty much. Actually, not even that, his second season, I should say. So, I would hope that can just build up, and he can be someone who can just barrel his way to the rim, because he's a big dude. He's got some LeBron-esque abilities to just muscle defenders out of the way and get himself inside. I've heard the term bullying opposing small forwards used with Jabari sometimes, and I would kind of agree with that. All of this allows his post-up game to be impressive, and I think this could be the area that really allows him to go to another level as a scorer, because if you're able to shoot from 3 and you can post up effectively, then you've really got something. And the interesting thing with the Bulls is apparently he will be playing the 3 because of Markkanen at the 4, and I'll talk about all this in a few minutes. So, yeah, we could see him posting up on a lot of NBA threes who may not be big enough to really deal with him. And I think, again, because he's just been out of lineups with injuries for so much of his time in the NBA now, that whenever he does show a consistency of pretty much anything, I think that means that if he can just be healthy, that he could be really good at whatever that thing may be. And you could argue that his post-up game has been the most impressive part of his skill set up to this point. He's gotten a little better at being a pick-and-roll ball handler. He didn't do it too much this season for the Bucks, but it was around 30 games. He was able to be in one of the higher percentiles in the NBA, but you give him a larger sample size, and I don't know if he can really be a leader of an offense like that, but that's a good enough sign at least that when asked to, he was able to dictate some offense himself rather than receiving the ball all the time. And he did shoot around 4 free throws a game 2 seasons ago, and to add to the way he can use his strength to overpower defenders, draws a lot of contact, and you can get to the free throw line quite a lot. That's the recipe for Jabari, man. 3-pointers, post-ups, marginal improvements as a ball handler in the pick and roll, and then getting to the free throw line a lot. If we get to some negatives for Jabari, while I think he can outmuscle a lot of threes, I don't think he can beat a lot of them in straight-up isolations. Now, I know I'm being a little mean to him by putting him on Kawhi here, but even amongst NBA small forwards who are just decent enough defensively, he does have some trouble sometimes. I think that's because he's kind of always been a little too heavy. Like, the drawback of being stronger than a lot of guys is you end up being slower than a lot of guys too, and that can be seen sometimes with beating them off the dribble or attempting to, but also on defense. His defensive woes have been pretty well talked about. I'm not saying anything new with this. He's just got to get better. Now, because he's got some decent enough size on him, and hoping that he can just drop the weight a little bit while still maintaining his strength, he's got a 6'8 frame. So as long as you are at least an okay athlete, which he definitely is, and you care, when you're 6'8, you should be a decent enough defensive player. It hasn't happened yet, but, a new team, a new source of motivation, perhaps that can be the thing. But yeah, the mental side really needs to improve defensively. Now if we can get to the way that he can match up with his teammates. One, he'll probably just be asked to shoot the ball more, which will probably be good for him because Giannis took over as the dude in Milwaukee as Jabari was in and out of the lineup all the time. And that can be tough to adjust to, right? You're a dude who's been the primary scorer for probably his whole life, I'm going to assume, and then Giannis starts doing his thing, and given that you're not able to stay on the floor for too long to really adjust, well, there you go. The Bulls don't really have a primary option. I mean, I guess Markkanen would be the closest thing to it without me actually looking at their shot attempts per game. But I think Jabari will find himself a lot more possessions a game where he can just kind of improv. If we go to Markkanen again, spacing should be really good. You could argue that the spacing in Milwaukee was never totally there because they just didn't have a lot of shooters like that, whereas Markkanen playing the 4 and maybe sometimes the 5 could give Jabari a lot of room to operate, perhaps allow him to be a better isolation player. Zach LaVine's a decent enough three-point shooter who should have defenders at least somewhat staying on him. And Wendell Carter Jr.'s jumper will be really interesting because scouts have said that he has a pretty decent outside shot, and he's had some highlights in Summer League where it looks pretty good. If he can make his threes over the course of the season and NBA bigs start respecting him from out there, that would really open up the floor for Jabari to just do stuff, really. When I say stuff, I mainly mean the post-ups. Because, if he's got an NBA small forward on him, and funny enough, Tobias Harris is one of the ones who might actually be able to deal with him strength-wise, but I don't think a lot of threes can really match up with him like that. And definitely not a lot of two guards. So if he can post up on these guys, have room to operate because of the shooting in the front court on this Bulls team, once again, could allow him to get some easier baskets that he probably was not able to get with Milwaukee. Now, going to the fact that Jabari is not the best ball handler in the world, he's not going to have to do too much of that here. I mean, he's going to have to do some, of course, but Chris Dunn is improving on his offensive game. Zach LaVine likes the ball in his hands too, and sure, I don't love either one of these guys offensively. I think Dunn is an awesome defender, but at least that's something in the starting lineup to where Jabari is not asked to handle the ball too often, because I think if you had him doing that, then he could be a bit overwhelmed, right? Sometimes going up against a good defender, he could get the ball stripped, or once again, he just might not be able to beat a lot of guys off the dribble like that. At least not right now. Give him a season or two, maybe. So Chris Dunn and LaVine, they can just they can take the pressure off of Jabari a bit. And I think they could allow him to play off the ball more, where I think he's shown a lot of potential to be pretty damn good. I think Jabari does have like some Paul George off-ballness to him, even if he's nowhere near as athletic as Paul George is. If we get to defense, Wendell Carter Jr. better be good, because if he's not good, this team is going to be trash on that side of the floor, unless Markkanen and LaVine and Jabari make drastic jumps, okay? Now, Chris Dunn's going to be good as well, but the impact of a good defensive center is way higher than the impact of a good defensive point guard. So Dunn's going to do what he can, and he's very good at it, but, he can only do so much, whereas Carter can make a huge difference as a rim protector, pick-and-roll defender, and all that. Levine, they just gave him a lot of money. He has not been a good defensive player up to this point in his career. Isolations, pick and rolls, playing off the ball, whatever it is with Levine, he's going to have a tough time. If he can just get better, that would be awesome. Markkanen is, I feel like he's faster on offense than he is on defense. Like, his lateral quickness isn't the best, combined with the fact that he's not exactly the strongest dude on the floor. I wouldn't say he's a weakling, but he's definitely not a powerhouse. We'll say that much. And then you got Jabari once again. So there's a chance this Bulls team is going to be bad on defense. We'll see how good Carter is in his rookie season. They still have Robin Lopez. He's a good defensive 5. We got to remember that one. So, yeah, I think there's things to be excited about with Jabari on offense. The makeup, the fact that he's got other ball handlers and he'll have more of an opportunity as well as some better spacing. But this team is very young. They're probably going to be bad on defense. We're just going to have to see, but I like the signing.